And to be able to take that feedback and not become defensive. Right now, in the culture,
Right.
not to be too specific, but in the culture we live in, you can't even have differing opinions without one side just attacking you up and down.
The challenge is when we lose our way, right? And unfortunately, I think, and I talk about this, that, you know, people think of accountability as a 4-letter word, and that we get very defensive. We don't want a different side. We don't want negative feedback. And that is from the rookie, the nugget, the first day on the job, to a lot of the most senior officers and board directors, right? The directors on boards. They don't tell me the negative news. I don't need to hear that. Or I don't want to hear what you think I'm doing wrong. And unfortunately, what happens then is it stops that ability to grow and get better. Now, your balance sheet might be showing a positive, but you have a trail of terror and tears in your path, right? So where are you going to be 10 years from now?
That's right. It'll eventually catch up.
That's right. And whether that, and you may not see that dip and if we're talking large scale organizations, you may not see that dip in shareholder value or stock value. But I'll tell you what, there's a very real cost in probably your retention rate and the costs involved in bringing people on board all of the time. And so, you know, it's interesting. We used really simple, straightforward processes to try to get better. One of those tools that we always used in aviation was debriefing. After every single flight, we took the time to debrief because we wanted to learn what worked, what didn't, and why. And those are both the good things and what we call Top Gun style others, right? So it's not goods and bads. It's goods and others.
Okay, got it.
Because what we don't want to do is we don't want to leave success to chance. And when we're all moving at this really, you know, fast pace right now, and we're feeling overwhelmed and there's a lot of uncertainty, we get a project done and we move on to the next thing. Or we hit a metric and we're on to the next workout plan. And we're just boom, boom, boom. But we're never really taking the time to be reflective. If we stop doing any one of these things, then we're not going to be able to respond to changing market trends quickly. We're not going to be able to respond to competition. We're not going to be able to respond if we're athletes or high-performing physical individual people to physical challenges because we've literally left success to chance. So there are things in play. I wish I'm on a couple of boards, and you know, like I said, I get to coach a lot of good executives or highly placed executives. I wish more people took the time to debrief because they would learn very quickly that within the debrief, when everybody is on board and we have that shared sense of purpose, the debrief is not about placing blame.
Yes.
It is not about who is right. It is about what is right.
Yeah.
And that can transform your company, your team, and your organization. And people can then show up their best versions of themselves because they know they're going to learn. They know there's room in the system for some mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen, and we're going to keep moving forward.
That's right.
But people think accountability is a 4-letter word. And I think that's part of why we find ourselves where we are today, because it makes people defensive.
And it doesn't need to. I remember when I was speaking on stage with best-selling author Brian Tracy in Seattle, and I got up on stage and I was speaking and my suit jacket was open and I was on fire, right? I was having a great time. I went out to lunch with them afterwards. He said, TJ, it's not professional as a speaker to speak with your suit jacket open.
Oh.
That felt a little uncomfortable in that moment. But I got to tell you what, I immediately said to him, thank you for that feedback. Even though I didn't feel enthusiastic about it in the moment, my drive home, I interpreted that as, that's awesome. That is constructive. And ever since then, I've always, unless I'm in a small group where maybe there's only 30 people, but if I'm on a stage where I'm doing a keynote, my suit jacket is buttoned. And so,
isn't that fascinating?
instead of being defensive, take the information in and say, okay, there must be some truth in this. There must be something I can do a little bit better. And that goes back to just being humble. We talked about that. And It just seems like the leaders that I've worked with are very competent people, but they are also, you can be humble and confident at the same time.
Yes.
Podcast listeners, thanks for listening. You've taken time out of your schedule, and I really appreciate it. Now do me a favor. If you like what you heard, star it. Thanks. Now go unleash your greatness within.
GreatnessWithin.com